Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Y'all ready for this?
Tennis is back, folks. This is Steve Hess. I'm the league coordinator of Gladiator Tennis. We just started our spring singles season. 850 Gladiators are arranging their matches and out in the courts in the St. Louis and Chicagoland area. And the weather's beautiful. It's great to be alive if you're a tennis player. Today, our real life gladiator that we're going to encounter is Jill Siegel. She is the executive director of the USTA in the Chicago District. And she is also a gladiator player. So we're going to meet her right now. Here's Jill Siegel. So you started playing gladiator tennis in 2013, and you were the top 4.0 player in our league that year. And then in 2018, you and your daughter, Brooklyn, she is 14, and you won the doubles playoffs at 4.0.
Yeah, my daughter, and I know some of the people that we played. Derek Hayden was one of them, and she just kind of laughed at, like, my daughter would get really mad at me, and of course she was carrying me because she's a much stronger player. But I've tried to get her to sign up with me again, and she's like, that was a one-time deal. There was a little bit of bickering going on.
Well, I'm glad you won then. If
yeah.
you hadn't won, you would have been in a bad position with your daughter.
That's true.
Yeah.
Here is the trophy that Brooklyn and I won. We're very proud of this.
How did you first get into tennis, the sport?
I grew up in Oklahoma, not a big city, but at that time, tennis was the social activity for my parents. And so my younger brother and I started playing, and I just really loved it. It was more social for my parents, and they ended up actually not sticking with it, but my brother and I really did, and would take a lot of lessons and play junior tournaments. And I remember I would ride my bike to those courts whenever I could and just play, and I would hit on the wall for hours. It was it got me through my junior high and high school years for sure. It was like my safety net. I played junior tournaments and then on our high school team, and I think probably one of the most memorable and painful matches for me was in our high school state championship. And it was one of those opportunities that you kind of dream for, but I failed completely. I was playing number 2 singles, and the girl that I was playing was on the team. Both of our teams were whoever won that match was going to win the state championship, right? And it came down to 3 sets, and I did not pull it out. And so we ended up being in second place. But so that's a very painful memory for me.
Oh, yeah. And it was captured by the photographer and plastered all over the newspapers.
I was from a smaller city. So high school sports was big news. So there's a really painful, I think the headline is the agony, not the ecstasy, just the agony. And It definitely was.
Oh, wow.
I kind of fit that stereotype of played as a junior, played in college, and then life kind of took over. And after graduate school, didn't really get to play a lot until after, marriage and having a child. And then it was after getting through some of those hurdles or big life events that when things calmed down, I was able to play a little bit more. I agree with you. In Chicago, if you're going to play year round, it can get really expensive. But Gladiator was one of my reentry play activities that I did, and it's been really great.
in 2013, that was your first year in Gladiator. You got involved with the USTA as a player, and somehow that became you as the executive director. So how did that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of a big jump because I wasn't working in the tennis industry, but had played league. I think I did play a little bit of league around the same time as Gladiator, maybe a little bit before. When my daughter was about 3, she started taking tennis lessons and kind of picked it up enough that she went down the competitive development path. And so as she started playing more tournaments, I got to learn more about the USTA. It's kind of ironic. I had applied to be a volunteer with the USTA and was told, no, thank you. So then I showed them, I applied to work for them. And it was, I think it was a confluence of a lot of different things. The executive director for the Chicago District had been there for 26 years and was retiring. And so my pitch when I spoke to the selection committee was, my background is in community development, and I've done a lot of work with chambers of commerce, with neighborhood groups, and with nonprofits. So I had a lot of nonprofit experience, but I really felt like there was an opportunity to build community within the tennis ecosystem in Chicago. And that seemed to resonate with the selection committee. You know, I think we've made some inroads with that. You know, ironically, I think having something like what we're going through now with the coronavirus has been a rallying cry that we are, you know, the tennis community is coming together. We're trying to figure out how to navigate this crisis and get through it, hopefully better than ever.
So yeah, what have you been doing during this COVID? No one's able to play tennis, so do you just sit around twiddling your thumbs, or are you doing something?
I've restrung my racket like 400 times. We had to look at our own budget and figure out, try to do some projections. We have about 5 different budgets going right now that are dependent upon when play can resume. At the same time, like our players and clubs, they look to us to be a resource and a support. We are a membership organization, so they're looking for us to help them answer questions too. So we've been trying to provide resources and information. One of our goals was to, once the Restore Illinois plan came out, was to get tennis into phase 3, indoor tennis into phase 3. So we're happy that that goal was met this week. Still a lot of unanswered questions about what exactly that means, but I think we're definitely seeing progress, and it's great to see so many Park District courts starting to open up and seeing people playing again.
Yeah, that was great news that we got. Was it either yesterday or the day before about, you know, the order that all the courts could be open now. So to the extent that USTA, you know, had a role in making that happen, we all really appreciate what you've done.
Well, I definitely think a lot of people did, and I know you know Dr. Ezike, who the director of IADPH, is a Gladiator and a USTA player, and so we're all lucky that we had that advocate for tennis at that level in state government.
The feedback that I get from the players in Gladiator Tennis, I'd say 80 to 90% of them are like, hey, you know, what's going on? This is a no-brainer. We should be able to play in the courts. Right now, there's automatic social distancing. You know, we're 75 to 80 feet away from each other most of the time. And then there's another 10 to 20%, I would say, who, you know, will say, you know, I don't think I'm ready to play yet because I've got somebody at home who's immunocompromised, or of an elderly person that I'm taking care of or living with. So I don't think I want to take the risk of exposing them by going out to play tennis. So what do you think about the safety of playing tennis right now?
You know, I think the equipment, the space, even the ball, I think you can play safely. What what does worry me is all the people, right? We
Yeah.
have to engage with the sport responsibly. And I think that's with everything. I think we had to go through a time period to deal with this very serious crisis to stay home and until we had a little bit of a handle on all the precautions that need to be taken and to make sure that our public health system could take care of it and didn't get overloaded. I think we have a great opportunity or challenge now to reach out to people who maybe haven't been playing and show them how you can play safely. Even at this time, this is a great activity to start back up being active as we're coming out of this.
I was going to ask you a little later in the interview about your thoughts on tennis in Chicago, whether you think it's dying, surviving, or thriving. Let's just do that now. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's dying. And I'd like to think it's doing a little bit more than surviving from what we see at USTA or the Chicago District. Certainly our adult participation has been pretty constant. There's not growth there. There's some dips, some highs and lows. We also haven't evolved the offerings a whole lot. It's been a pretty consistent format league program for a while. So that at that level, I think we're kind of treading water. As we're treading water, those players they're predominantly women and they're like over 40 years old. So there's an opportunity to grow the game with younger folks.
Sure.
That said, if you look for our junior programs, over the last couple of years, we've started these short format one-day tournaments, and those have been incredibly successful. So we are definitely seeing growth with junior activities.
As the director of USTA right now, what are your goals for tennis in Chicagoland?
The Chicago District's mission is to create, sustain, and grow enthusiasm for the game throughout the Chicagoland area. So we talked a lot about not everybody can play, but we want to encourage spectators. We want to encourage everybody to be fans of the game and to engage with it however they're going to. So, in the past, I think the whole funding structure for CDTA and the focus of our work was pretty predictable. Like we ran leagues, we ran tournaments. So last summer we provided instruction within 5 Chicago Park District day camps. So there were, I think, around 630 kids coming to these 5 camps. Now, they didn't sign up to play tennis. They just were coming to day camp, right? Parents had to work, kids had to go someplace. Yeah. Well, through our partnership and investment in this program, those kids got to play tennis 1 day a week for the 8 weeks of the summer camp. And they just got an exposure to the game, right? And the thing that was most exciting for us from that effort was that 72% of those 600 kids had never played tennis before. Wow. And so now they've gotten a taste of it. We use like the foam balls so that they're able to engage with it right away. It's the equipment now is so good for learning how to play. And I think that's really important to help grow the game as well. It's a hard game to master, but if you have the right equipment, you can start playing pretty quickly.
That's an amazing story. So I'm just doing the math. 70% of 600 is 420 new kids who are touching a tennis racket and hitting the ball. And out of all those kids, you're going to have some people. You lit the fire for a number of them who will want to play the rest of their lives. That's growing tennis.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah, growing tennis from the grassroots. That's awesome.
It really got me through high school. I mean, it was just a tough time for me. I mean, high school, junior high too. it was my safety net, you know? And it wasn't like I was ever going to be a pro player, but I think we all need to have, or I think kids particularly need to have something that is theirs, like it's their passion, right? It can be music, it could be art, whatever. Tennis was definitely mine, and it helped. It certainly helped pay for college. So that in my formative years, it was a big piece of what of my life.
Yeah.
Now it's a big piece of our family's life. Like we all play. It's how we kind of try to keep mentally and physically healthy. Like you said, it can extend your life. So it's a great sport for that. It's such a it's just like a microcosm for life, you know? I mean, you're under the pressure cooker and you have to solve problems.
Yeah.
My daughter plays tournaments, and a couple years ago, she was playing in a tournament, and it was a tough, like 3-setter, and she legitimately, sincerely, accidentally dropped her racket. But then I think her impulse out of frustration was to then kick the racket, and it didn't go off the air. It kind of just slid off the court, but the timing was really bad, and there was an official there, and so she got a point penalty, and she came off the court, and she was just she was really frustrated because it wasn't fair that, you know, her opponent was banging her racket on the ground a lot, but she didn't get called for anything. And I told her, look, life is not fair. When you're out on that court, you have to problem solve, you have to figure it out, you have to adjust, and you have to carry yourself well the whole time you're doing it. And if that's not a training for life, I don't know what is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As a mom explaining that all to her, I'm sure she just eagerly listened to you, right? In the moment.
She just drank it up. She just soaked it up.
One more question. We'll go a little controversial here. Who is the GOAT of tennis?
My heart, I mean, I really love Federer. You know, he's almost looks like an artist. Like some of the things that he does, you don't imagine how could he have just done that, right? But then you look at Nadal, who's just like such a warrior, like just pure athleticism. So I'm dodging the question entirely, but my heart goes out for Federer. I do love Federer.
I think, you know, I've asked this question to a number of people now, and the consensus, I mean, some people will just say Djokovic or Nadal, but I think more, probably the majority of people would say that they want Federer to be the GOAT. Yeah. And some people would say he was, but I'd say a lot of people just want him to be because they like him. They like the way he plays, and they like the person that he is. You know, he's generous. He's a great role model in the sport, regardless of whether Djokovic or Nadal finish with more Grand Slams, which they very well could. They're good guys too, actually.
Right.
Who's the female greatest of all time?
I think Serena is, I mean, undoubtedly remarkable. I think that I don't have as strong of feelings about the women. I think there's a lot of great players. You know, you mentioned Su Shui. I think that is the way she plays is just so captivating. She's not going to be the greatest ever, but man, she brings a lot of excitement and creativity to the game, and that makes a single match great, right?
For sure, yeah. Those are entertaining matches to watch. You have a picture of her with Brooklyn, right? Here.
Right, yeah.
In Brooklyn. I'm not looking at the picture at the moment, but I remember, yeah, that. And did you get to talk to her at all?
No, it was like a quick, can we get a picture?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been great to see these pictures you sent me. But Xia Sui, Naomi Osaka, Sam Querrey, Billie Jean King. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that picture with Stefan Edberg was a really prized possession for me at the time. most of my friends and I really loved Stefan Edberg. About 5 or 6 years ago, as a family, we started going to the US Open, and it's just been a lot of fun. And then a few years ago, we started also going to the Western and Southern in Cincinnati. And so
that's a great event, the Western and
yeah,
Southern.
it is a great event.
You get up up close to the players. You know,
Yeah.
you have the big stadiums, but then you have the perimeter courts, and you can get a front row seat for a top 10 player occasionally on those perimeter courts.
Absolutely, and the players are a lot more accessible, so that's where some of those pictures have come from. If I go even deeper back into history, when I was in high school, we had a little bit of a pro exhibition that came to our town, and so a couple of players and I were asked to be part of this exhibition with the players. And one of the players who came was Aaron Crickstein. So that goes really far back.
He was kind of a chick magnet back then too, wasn't he?
He was a chick magnet, Steve. And he was so much of one that I asked him if he would go to the prom with me, but he declined.
Oh man, if you could have gone to prom with them.
Yeah, that would have been nice, but he had other plans. I can't imagine what.
Well, Jill, thanks so much for this time. I know it's very valuable for you. You've got a lot of irons in the fire right now, so I appreciate your taking the time out. And we're all going to be on the courts very quickly here celebrating. I'm rooting for everything you're doing there with USTA.
Well, thanks so much, Steve. It's great talking to you, and thank you for all you do. And, play safe out there.
Y'all ready for this?